What's up, guys? So this is Mystery School back again. So I guess before I make a new player of the game video, one of those nice fun videos, it seemed to do pretty well actually. Got more views in that video than I did for most of my other videos. So those will probably become part of the cycle of shit coming out of my channel. But before we get down to more fun stuff, let's talk about Utopia and Dystopia and how human beings we have a decision between Utopia and Dystopia. Our country will make a decision, and really not even just the country, like the world and humanity, if you want to just insert humanity in for that word country. But humanity will make a decision between human progress and human well-being. While these two concepts are linked, they are sometimes not aligned. Sometimes people must suffer now for the better future. These concepts are often misaligned because we don't have the resources to make both things happen simultaneously. Now, you can make the argument that human progress is going to increase human well being in the long term, but in the short term, people have to do work. There's a lot of stuff that has to be sacrificed now for a better tomorrow. You know, I truly believe that no one in this world is free. Even those at the top must answer to someone or something. Whether a man is a slave to his wealth or a slave to his job, it's all the same. Now you could argue that the man who was a slave to his wealth has a better life, and you would probably be more right than wrong. But as the old saying goes, more money, more problems. He has problems that you can't even conceive of, and you have problems that he can't conceive of. This reminds me of the phrase, don't look up, look around you. I've even said this myself, and I've even attacked this phrase in previous videos. But there's also a lot of truth in this phrase. It is both true that this man's wealth and power could save you, the poor person, or even a middle class person, from whatever problem that you're facing right now. But this doesn't actually address the root of your issue, of your problems. We've all heard stories of people winning millions of dollars in the lottery only to lose it within 5 years, or even less than that. These people had greater problems than just poverty and being poor. Now, you could argue that those problems came from poverty, and I will willingly concede that. I think it's true. Being poor can cause you to have a lot of problems in other areas of your life. Fine. Looking at poverty from a macro level is from an ivory tower, effectively, makes a problem look extremely easy. Throw money out of the ivory tower and the problem is solved. Oh, look, guys, I saved you all. Here's the free money. But from a micro level, things are much different. Things get messier on a micro level. So there's the macro world and the micro world. Macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macro being the entire economy of a country or the entire economy of the world, and micro being the economy of like a business or even like a group of businesses, something like that. So you know, things get messier when you start digging down into the weeds of society and problems. If God gave man grace on a macro level, he said, humanity, I sacrificed my son for you. Here is the grace that you wanted. Then on a micro level, the stories will look a lot different than on the macro level. Nothing is ever equally distributed on the micro level. I can look at the entire population of America and get useful data that will never apply directly to one person. And if I was to take this data to that one person and say, hey, you're all of this. So if I took this data to this person and told them, hey, not only are you poor, destitute, stupid, and blah blah blah, but you're all of these things here too. Like look what the data says. This person might say, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I'm an idiot. I don't feel like I'm like in poverty. What are you talking about? Because what mass data does, when we take massive amounts of data and make extrapolations about it, it's both correct, but it's also incorrect when solving problems on a micro level. So when you take mass data or data that's collected in mass, you're removing the humanity from the person, and you're just looking at them as being a dot on a fucking graph. Now, these dots in the graph are accurate, and we can do something with this information. It can tell us a lot about humanity as a whole, but it can never tell us what problem that Bob or Susie or Billy is truly going through, because you've removed all the noise. This is effectively the principal sin of leftism. Of I'm not talking about, like, I myself am a liberal, and I'm so glad that right now we have this weird split between like liberals and leftists, where People like me who are like center left or center right on a few issues, like classically liberal or being liberal in a way that is like like a little bit further to the left on some issues. Okay, like these people here are like the bedrock of like a civilization. These are the people here that can actually talk to one another and say, okay, we both want progress, but the classical liberal or the conservative liberal might say, hey, I want progress in a more slow way. And the a lefty liberal might be like, okay, well, I understand that, so we can at least we can talk here. Leftism is almost saying that like no, 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 everything here is wrong, and we need to run towards utopia, as if like that's gonna solve the problem. Like you're not solving problems just by throwing money at the problem on a micro level, because at the end of the day, the micro is truly what matters too. It matters too. To pretend as if the macro is all that matters, and like in like doing everything from a top down approach is gonna solve all the problems of the world, like you're gonna cause a whole lot of pain and suffering. You're gonna get to hear faster than if you address things in a more slow and methodical way. Even Obama says this. Obama says that sometimes a scalpel is needed before you use the fucking hatchet. The liberals want to use the hat, not the liberals, I'm sorry, but leftists want to use the hatchet, and conservatives or even liberals too want to use the scalpel. Okay, we can like address these things small ways, do this here, do this here. Okay, but I'm going off on a tangent here. Let me get back on the script here. So, people want someone to blame for their problems instead of looking inward. I will always concede that your environment and your genes are what shapes you, and events just happen. It simply is what it is. If human beings are inputs and outputs, then all I'm simply trying to do in this video here is be a new input into your life that makes you look inward. I want you to do introspection. Analyze yourself, do self-analysis, and do it like in an honest way. Don't make excuses for yourself. Like now, sometimes you can make excuses that are like logical. Like it's gonna take you a long time to really get to like a level of like introspection that's actually meaningful. But really, just look inward and like dig down deep and look at like how did I get here? And what you're gonna find is that okay, like the story's really really shit sometimes. Like okay, like I got here because of abuse. I got here because of this and that and this and that and this. And you can kind of look at that stuff and say, okay, well, how did those events, if you look back into your past, how did those events shape me back then to be who I am now? I want you to look inward so that something else can happen. And hopefully, that something else, that new event that happens, is better than yesterday. Where people get moral authority in which to condemn some and not others is very frightening. Let's say you just reject God as being existing outright. Fine, that's fine. But where does one get the idea of human rights from? Where does one get the idea of being good from? What does it mean to be good? What does it mean to value human life? And what makes you think that you know what that is? The realm of a meta ethics is weird because it tries to describe what good is, and even bad. It tries to describe what these concepts are, but every definition is arbitrary. They're trying to create something from nothing, but you can't really do it. You could invoke consensus here. You could say that, hey, the group gets to decide what's good and what's bad. But what if the group decides on something that you don't like, such as slavery of your people? Just because a group of people says something is morally right doesn't make it so. So, since we've removed God in our first example, let's now invoke God. Let's use God now. Okay, so now we have a God who can tell us what to do, but even that doesn't tell us what we ought to do. We could reject God entirely, or gods entirely, God's rules entirely. You could pose the question, well, why should we listen to God? What makes it so special? At the end of the day, the only reason you listen to God or man-made institutions like government is because they have the power or the force to make you do it and can make your life a living hell if you don't. Try not paying your taxes and see what happens. On some level, it's might makes right. These institutions or deities might not always wield their power in the most abusive ways possible, but the fact that they could should make you think twice about doing stupid shit. Effectively, what I'm saying here is that you don't have the power, if you don't have the power, capital, or will to exercise over others, it doesn't matter what's morally or factually right. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is force via the pen or the sword that decides what is. Whether that is, quote unquote, is objectively true or morally right is irrelevant because it just is. But for all intents and purposes, it is true, and you will live your life around this truth. And just to finish off this video here, another, harsh truth is that even if I showed a man Utopia, he wouldn't even believe that he lived in it. In fact, the children of the people who worked to create Utopia would find something wrong with this Utopia. So, this is a Mystery School. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree, and let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. I'm gonna try to get that next kind of fun video out soon. So, otherwise, you guys have a good Saturday. Peace out.